direct, basically predecessor. And it is my honor to talk to you guys a little bit about Betty before she has an opportunity to speak to you, because Betty has meant a lot of things to a lot of people, but she has been very, very special to have at College of Marin. And I consider myself lucky, and you should consider yourselves lucky to be here to experience what Betty has to give to us today. So I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk a little bit about Betty's background and some of her accomplishments before she comes up here to speak to you guys today. So first, Betty began what was to become a very distinguished academic career at Radcliffe College, where she earned a degree in classical archaeology, specifically Greek archaeology, as well as music. Betty would go on to earn a master's degree in history from Northwestern University and later studied anthropology at San Francisco State University. She has participated in many archaeological digs around the world, including such places as Kenya, where she got to work with Dr. Leakey, who was a very famous paleoanthropologist. She worked in Holland, as well as more locally in the state of Colorado, and even more locally nearby here in Mill Valley. Betty is also an esteemed author of several academic and popular publications, including Chief Marin, the book, or an individual of the book, of whom she's going to be speaking about a little bit today, and Discovering the Native Peoples of Point Reyes. It is also important to mention that with the work that she has done with the Mill Valley Historical Society, that Betty was named an honorary tribal member, tribal elder, and a tribal elder. And although the tribe now goes by the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria, they were and are connected to the Miwok that lived in this area. So she has become an honorary member of the Coast Miwok tribe, an elder of the Miwok tribe. However, to me and to many others here at COM, it's Betty's academic contributions to the college that are the most special. Thankfully, Betty's journey would lead her here to us at College of Marin. In 1971, Betty began teaching anthropology at College of Marin. Here at College of Marin, Betty helped to build a thriving anthropology department and would inspire numerous young minds. And I personally feel like the word numerous doesn't even do it. Generations of young minds. Betty, like so many academics, has an intrinsic desire for learning. But what really sets Betty apart from so many of her peers is her ability to bring students actively into the learning experience. Shortly after arriving at College of Marin, Betty started studying the archaeology and Native American history of Marin County. Betty worked closely with her students here at College of Marin, teaching them to analyze archaeological data, which was excavated locally here at College of Marin and surrounding areas by Betty's predecessor, John Macbeth. She also worked with them to comb through numerous historical records. Their research would culminate in the book and the individual that Betty's here to speak about today, Chief Marin, as well as several other publications. And it gave those students an invaluable experience in the field of archaeology and anthropology. Over the course of her 30-year career at College of Marin, Betty would continue to inspire and share unique and incredible academic experiences with her students in and outside of the classroom, like the ability to engage in research at College of Marin, or to travel abroad and experience anthropology and archaeology firsthand in places like France at Lascaux Cave, where students got to see cave art firsthand, or to go see the Iceman of the Alps, or visit Anasazi ruins in Colorado. As you will experience for yourselves today, Betty's enthusiasm for her work continues to be contagious, which is what makes her such a beloved individual here at College of Marin. So Betty, thank you for sharing your passion, your knowledge, and yourself with us for so many years. And just on a personal, slightly selfish note, thank you for all of the help, the guidance, and the advice that you gave me personally when I first started here as a budding academic at College of Marin. So now I would like to formally introduce all of you guys to a wonderful academic and a very generous human being, Betty Goerke.
Okay. Bear with me as I try and learn how to use this microphone. Thank you. This is my home. I taught here for so many years, 36 years actually. And then I started teaching in the non-credit program. And I feel loved here and welcomed here, and I hope you feel the same way. The joy of teaching here was always the students. The students were incredible, and I'm sure you were also incredible. So I'm just going to share with you today the story of who had the power at the San Rafael Mission. Now there were three forces: the sword, that would be the military, the cross, the church, and the arrow, the Indian. And I use the word Indian because I was told by Indians here that that's the word that they prefer, not Native American or indigenous people. So I'm not being rude. There were a lot of conflicts between the sword, cross, and arrow. They didn't get along together. And I'm going to explain some of that to you. But I want to start first with perception, because we don't have the native point of view. They didn't do any writing. They didn't know how to write. And so we don't have anything until the 1930s when some natives were interviewed. So I'm looking at the records of the priests, and looking at their diaries and the mission notes that they made, which I will explain. And so the perceptions are, which I'm going to share with you. You can argue with me at any point, and please feel free to do so. But perceptions is something that I know personally, and I want to talk about my book, Chief Marin. Now, when that book first came out, I would see it on the table, and I'd be nearby to talk about it. And this is what happened. Someone turned to me and said, "Oh, I always want to know if I can get cheap things in Marin County," and that's what they read. And somebody else, I heard this, and it turned to me and said, "I'm not reading another book." My favorite comment of all was when I would talk about Chief Marin, and I think I would pronounce it carefully. This is what some people heard. So I'm familiar with perceptions and in perfect interpretation, and I'm going to work on that right now. Okay, so we'll begin with the power of the sword. Okay, the military had a sword. They had horses, as you can see. Native people were not allowed to ride horses. And so you can see that prominent spot of the horses, and you can also see in the middle there a military man watching the Indians gambling. So you can see there's people on horses up high, and then down below are the Indians. The military were stationed at the Presidio in San Francisco. Large troop there, and they would send out different troops or different individuals to the missions. Some missions might have 7 soldiers there. San Rafael might have 1 soldier. And they would go out and they would look for runaway Indians. But the Indians didn't realize when they came in and were baptized, and they did this by choice. They wanted to join the mission. They joined the mission, but they became baptized, but they lost their ability to go home. They lost their freedom. And so when they ran away, which of course they wanted to go back to their village and see people who hadn't come in yet, or just to reconnect their land, they were brought back by force by the military. And this is just an example of a military man with his sword coming in to take a runaway Indian. Unfortunately, by taking up the runaways, they frequently also brought more Indians in, and they took them to the Presidio. And this is a drawing by Chorus. You can see his name in the lower right-hand corner there. He was a young man who came in on a Russian boat to Goerke in 1816, and he drew these wonderful pictures. The only mission that has pictures of people who were there, and this is now we know what the Cosmiwalk looked like, because in 1816, when he was there, most of the Indians had died at the mission, and so the Cosmiwalk would come in a little later were the ones that were represented at the mission. And they were taken to the Presidio, which is right here. And you can see them being marched in, of course, again, soldiers on horses. Okay, they were in conflict, the military were in conflict always with the priests. The priests did not like, put your hand up if you can't hear me. The priests did not like the fact that the military, they thought, could do whatever they wanted to do, and they didn't want to abide by any regulations or any statements that the military would make to them. The military did not like the church because they wanted the church to follow their directives, and the church tried to avoid them when they could. The power of the cross. The clergy wore dark brown robes, dark gray, and they believed, since they were the representative of God, that they had the ultimate power. And so when they spoke to the soldiers, they expected the soldiers to respect that power and to do what they say. And the soldiers were resentful because they felt the priests had food that they didn't have, and for 10 years, the military was not paid. So they were quite resentful, as you can understand. And that resentment showed itself in numerous ways by supporting the Indians instead of the church in conflicts. At the mission, every baptism, marriage, and death was recorded in these leather-bound books. And for some of the missions, the priests would just write very simply name and, I was to say address, but that's not probably appropriate, name and where they came from. And if they knew the name of the mother and the father. But in some missions, like at San Rafael, the priest wrote all kinds of little chatty notes so we could follow the histories and we know some interesting stories about these individuals. Now this is, I don't know if you can see it in the back row, but you see the number 2182? That's the recording of the 2,182nd Indian recorded at Mission Dolores, where the Indians first went, where the Cosmiwalk Indians first went. And it says that the Indian that was baptized, they gave him a saint's name, Marino, M-A-R-I-N-O, Marino. He is Chief Marin. And now, I can't do the pointer. And it also said that he was 20 years old when he came in, and they tell even the name of this tribal group was called Huymen, H-U-I-M-E-N. And at the bottom, they gave his Indian name, Musa. But that's the last time you would ever see that Indian name. So by baptizing, they gave up their name, and they gave up their stature in the mission community in one sense, by the fact that they were supposed to obey the rules of the mission. But in another sense, the Indians did not give up their belief system. They retained it, which I'll discuss in just a second. Okay, power of the arrow. The priests and military were scared of the Indians, and that was one of the powers that the Indians had. Because at 5 missions, Indians had attacked the missions. At 2 missions, they had poisoned the priest. And at 1 mission, they had actually murdered him. So this is a legitimate fear, and they want to make sure that the Indians were kept in control. These would be, of course, wild Indians because they're not wearing clothing, and at the mission, they all